force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and intent. But what happens when something crashes through the fabric of reality itself? Something that operates on rules the Force has never touched. The Empire was about to learn that some powers don't bow to Sith or Jedi philosophy. The sky above the industrial world of Garl tore open like a wound in space itself. No hyperspace signature, no ship on any scanner. Just a jagged rift of impossible colors, crimson and gold and electric blue, that vomited 6 humanoid figures and 5 colossal mechanical creatures into real time before collapsing with a thunderclap that shattered windows across 3 districts. Imperial Garrison Commander Thaley stood on the landing platform, squinting at the smoke rising from the crater 3 kilometers out. His data pad screamed warnings: seismic impact, unknown energy signatures, unauthorized landing in Sector 7. "Get me a visual," he snapped. The hollow projector flickered to life. Through the dust, 6 figures stood in the crater, armored warriors in red, black, pink, blue, yellow, and white. Their suits gleamed with an iridescence that looked organic, almost alive. Helmets with dark visors, no visible weapons, but their posture screamed combat readiness. Behind them, 5 massive shapes were pulling themselves from the rubble. A Tyrannosaurus, a Mastodon, a Triceratops, a saber-toothed tiger, a Pteranodon. All mechanical, all impossibly intricate, and all radiating the same energy signature that made Thale's tech officers curse in confusion. "Sir, those readings, they're not matching anything in Imperial databases. It's like biological energy merged with technology." "I don't care what they are," Thale growled. "Scramble TIE squadrons, mobilize ground forces. Nobody lands on an Imperial world without authorization." In the crater, Jason Lee Scott, Red Ranger, pulled off his helmet, his morphed state flickering like a bad holo signal. The armor held, but he could feel the instability. His morpher felt wrong. The connection to the morphing grid stretched thin and trembling. "Everyone okay?" His voice carried over the team comms. "Morphers glitching," Zack reported, his Black Ranger suit shimmering in and out of phase. "I'm at maybe 70% power." "Zords took heavy damage in the transit," Billy said, Blue Ranger visor scanning the mechanical dinosaurs behind them. "Whatever dimension we just fell through, it wasn't designed for morphing grid energy. We're operating in a fundamentally incompatible energy paradigm." "English, Billy," Kimberly said, Pink Ranger suit stabilizing as she rolled her shoulder. Yellow Ranger Trini was already moving, checking the perimeter. "It means we're a long way from Angel Grove," Tommy said quietly. White Ranger armor gleaming despite the flickering power. He could feel something in the air here, something vast and pervasive, like a sixth sense he'd never had before. It made his skin crawl. The whine of engines cut off further discussion. TIE fighters screamed overhead, their solar panel wings catching the light of an unfamiliar sun. The Rangers didn't need a translator to understand hostility. "Defensive positions," Jason called. The TIE fighters opened fire. Green laser bolts ripped through the air where the Rangers had been standing a heartbeat before. They scattered with practiced precision, years of fighting Rita's monsters giving them reflexes that translated across dimensions. "Those aren't putties," Zack shouted, diving behind rubble as a TIE strafed his position. "And those aren't Tengas," Kimberly added, her Pink Ranger agility carrying her up a broken wall. Billy's analytical mind raced as he dodged. The ships were clearly military. The weapons were energy-based, but not plasma in the conventional sense. The architecture around them, industrial, utilitarian, oppressive. And above it all, he could see star destroyers hovering in orbit like gray triangular gods. "Jason, I don't think we're in another dimension," Billy said over comms. "I think we're in another universe entirely." A TIE fighter exploded as Trini leaped 15 feet into the air. Impossible for a normal human, but the morphing grid enhanced her Yellow Ranger physiology and kicked through its viewport with a spinning heel strike that turned the craft into shrapnel. "Morphing grid still enhancing our physical abilities," she reported, landing in a crouch. "But the energy's wrong, like we're running on backup power." Tommy felt it too. The White Ranger power that normally sang through his veins was muted, distant. And underneath it, that other sensation, the vast, invisible ocean of energy that permeated everything here. He'd felt something similar when Rita's magic had turned him evil, when the Green Ranger powers had twisted his mind toward darkness. "Something's watching us," he said. "Something big." On the orbital star destroyer Relentless, Darth Vader stood before the holographic projection of the battle below, his respirator the only sound in the silent command deck. The reports from Commander Thale had been unusual, warriors appearing from nowhere. Energy signatures that read almost like force sensitivity, but fundamentally wrong. Mechanical creatures that moved with organic grace. "Lord Vader," the communications officer said carefully, "the Inquisitors request permission to investigate. They sense something in the force surrounding these intruders." Vader's respirator hissed. He could sense it too, a ripple in the force unlike anything he'd encountered. Not Jedi, not Sith, not even force-sensitive in the traditional sense, but power nonetheless. Raw, disciplined, and operating on principles the Force didn't touch. "Dispatch the Inquisitors," Vader commanded, his mechanical voice echoing. "I want these warriors alive. If they resist—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Below, the Rangers regrouped as Imperial ground forces deployed, white armored soldiers pouring from transport ships like an endless tide. "We need to move," Jason said. "Get to cover, figure out where we are, find a way home." "Jason," Tommy said, his voice tight, "I don't think these people are going to let us walk away." A stormtrooper squad opened fire. The Rangers moved. And across the galaxy, in his meditation chamber, Emperor Palpatine felt the Force tremble with the arrival of something that shouldn't exist. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The industrial district of Gorel became a war zone in minutes. The Rangers fought their way through stormtrooper squads with a brutal efficiency that sent Imperial officers scrambling for reinforcements. These weren't ordinary soldiers or even enhanced warriors. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years, covering each other's blind spots with instinctive precision. Zack ducked under a blaster bolt, swept a stormtrooper's legs, and disabled two more with a spinning back fist that dented white plastoid armor like tinfoil. These guys are everywhere. They're coordinated but predictable, Trini observed, her Yellow Ranger suit's sensors feeding her tactical data. Military training, but they're not used to opponents this fast. Billy had reached the same conclusion. Morphing grid enhancement gave them reaction times far beyond human norm, even with their powers fluctuating. But the sheer numbers were overwhelming. For every stormtrooper they incapacitated, 3 more appeared. "We can't fight an entire planet," Kimberly called out, using a broken transport as a springboard to launch herself over a squad of advancing troops. Her aerial kick sent a stormtrooper flying into his companions. Jason made the call every leader dreads: retreat. "Zords, we need extraction." The 5 mechanical beasts roared to life, their damaged systems straining. The Tyrannosaurus Dinozord's servos sparked as it moved, but it still had enough power to swat aside an Imperial AT-ST walker like a toy. The Mastodon's freeze beam, barely functional, created an ice barrier that bought them seconds. Billy, Can we combine? Jason shouted over the chaos. Negative. Billy's voice was strained as he interfaced with his Triceratops Zords systems through his morpher. The Megazord formation requires full grid synchronization. We're barely maintaining individual Zord operation. If we try to combine in this state, the power feedback could destroy the morphers entirely. Then we run. The Rangers leaped into their respective Zords cockpits, a practiced motion that felt wrong when every system was screaming warnings. The Zords turned and charged toward the city limits, leaving devastation and confused stormtroopers in their wake. They made it 17 kilometers before the Inquisitors arrived. Tommy saw them first, 3 figures descending from the sky like dark angels. They wore black armor, carried spinning double-bladed weapons that glowed red, and moved with a predatory grace that reminded him sickeningly of himself when Rita's evil had controlled him. "Contact," he warned. "Fast movers, incoming." The Inquisitors landed on the Zords with impossible agility, their lightsabers igniting with that distinctive snap hiss. The 5th brother drove his blade into the Mastodon's armor plating, and Zack screamed as his cockpit exploded with sparks. "They're cutting through the hull!" The 7th sister was already on the Pteranodon, her blade carving through wing struts, while Kimberly fought to keep the Zord airborne. The 3rd sister targeted the Tyrannosaurus, her red lightsaber screeching against reinforced metal that had survived Rita's monsters, but wasn't designed for sustained plasma cutting. "Eject!" Jason ordered. "Zords down! Eject now!" The Rangers burst from their cockpits as the Inquisitors struck, landing in the rocky terrain with morphed suits absorbing impacts that would have killed unmorphed humans. The Zords crashed behind them, damaged but not destroyed. The 5th brother ignited his lightsaber and pointed it at the Rangers. "You will surrender. The Empire has use for Force sensitives." "Force what?" Zack said, raising his fists. "We're not surrendering to anybody," Jason said flatly. The 7th sister's head tilted, her voice amused behind her helmet. "They don't even know what they are. How quaint." She moved. The Force propelled her forward with inhuman speed, but the Rangers had fought faster. Rita's monsters, Lord Zedd's champions. Tommy himself when the Green Ranger powers had corrupted him. The 7th sister's lightsaber met Jason's morphed forearm, and instead of severing the limb, the blade skittered across the Ranger suit's surface with a shower of sparks. The sister recoiled in shock. "What?" Jason's punch caught her in the chest plate, morphed strength behind it. She flew backward 20 feet. The 3rd sister snarled and unleashed Force lightning. The blue-white energy crackled toward Tommy, who instinctively raised his hands, and the White Ranger suit absorbed it, channeling the energy through its biotechnological matrix before dispersing it harmlessly into the ground. Tommy stared at his hands. That shouldn't have worked. "Billy, analysis." Jason dodged another lightsaber strike, his Red Ranger reflexes keeping him alive by milliseconds. "The morphed suits are generating a localized energy field that's interfering with whatever power they're using." Billy was already running calculations. "It's similar to how our suits protect against magical attacks, but the effect is enhanced here. These weapons," he ducked under a horizontal slash, "they're plasma-based, but the morphing grid energy is partially deflecting them." The 5th brother was not accustomed to opponents who could withstand Inquisitor assault. He reached out with the Force, attempting to crush Zack's throat from across the battlefield. Zack gasped as invisible pressure closed around his neck, but his morphed suit's energy field weakened the grip just enough for him to breathe. "Can't hold me," Zack choked out, then charged forward and delivered a Black Ranger-enhanced uppercut that sent the 5th brother's helmet flying. Trini and Kimberly were fighting the 3rd sister in perfect tandem, their years of synchronized training creating a 2-person assault pattern that the Inquisitor couldn't counter. pink and yellow Rangers moved like liquid, each covering the other's attacks, never giving their opponent space to breathe. The third sister made a mistake. She focused on Trini. Kimberly's flying kick caught her in the side, morphed strength driving the wind from her lungs. The Inquisitors regrouped, clearly reassessing. These weren't Jedi, weren't Sith, weren't even Force-sensitive in any conventional sense. But they fought like nothing the Empire had ever encountered. "Report this to Lord Vader," the fifth brother commanded through his comlink. "We require—" A TIE bomber's screech interrupted him. The Empire had decided to end this with overwhelming firepower. Orbital strikes lit up the horizon. "Move!" Jason grabbed Tommy's shoulder. "We can't fight them all." The Rangers ran. The Inquisitors pursued. And somewhere aboard the Relentless, Darth Vader watched the combat footage with intense interest. The wastelands of Lothal stretched endlessly under twin suns, a landscape of red rock, dead vegetation, and the bones of a world strip-mined by Imperial greed. The Rangers had been running for 6 hours, their morphed states flickering in and out as the morphing grid connection destabilized further. They'd finally demorphed entirely, their civilian clothes looking absurdly out of place in this harsh alien desert. Jason's red jacket was torn. Kimberly's pink tank top was covered in dust. Tommy's white shirt was stained with blood from a graze wound where a blaster bolt had gotten too close. They looked like what they were, 6 teenagers impossibly far from home. "Billy, please tell me you've got something," Jason said, his voice hoarse. Billy was hunched over his morpher, using a salvaged Imperial datapad they'd stolen during their escape to interface with the device's diagnostic systems. His glasses were cracked, but his mind was working at full capacity. "The morphing grid isn't gone," he said carefully. "It's stretched. Imagine a rubber band pulled across an impossible distance. We're still connected to Zordon, to the power chamber, but the dimensional barrier between our universe and this one is creating massive interference. Every time we morph, we're pulling energy across that barrier, and it's getting harder." "How long until we can't morph at all?" Trini asked quietly. Billy hesitated. "At current degradation rates, maybe 3 days. After that, the morphers will be completely non-functional unless we find a compatible energy source to stabilize the connection." "Compatible energy source," Zach repeated. "In a galaxy we don't understand, where everyone's been shooting at us." "Great. We need allies," Kimberly said. "Someone who can tell us what the hell is going on. Those people with the laser swords, they kept saying we were Force-sensitive. What does that even mean?" Tommy had been silent, staring at his hands. He could still feel it, that vast ocean of energy underneath everything. It whispered to him, promised him power, reminded him of things he'd done when Rita controlled him. "Tommy?" Jason touched his shoulder. "I can feel something," Tommy said quietly. "Ever since we arrived, it's everywhere, in the air, the ground, the people. And it's calling to me, the same way Rita's magic used to." The team went silent. They all remembered the Green Ranger, the evil Tommy who'd nearly destroyed them before they broke Rita's spell. "We won't let that happen again," Jason said firmly. Before Tommy could respond, Trini hissed a warning. "Movement, 3 o'clock." They tensed, ready to fight despite exhaustion, and then saw something unexpected. A group of humans, armed but not wearing Imperial armor, were approaching cautiously. They wore mismatched clothing, carried modified blaster rifles, and moved with the careful discipline of guerrilla fighters. The leader was a Twi'lek woman, her blue skin and headtails marking her as distinctly alien in a way that made the Rangers stare despite themselves. She held up a hand, palm forward, universal gesture of peace. "You're the ones the Empire's hunting," she said. Her voice carried authority tempered by wariness. We saw what you did to those Inquisitors. We saw your machines." "Who are you?" Jason asked, not relaxing his stance. "Hera Syndulla, Rebel Alliance. And if you stay out here, those Star Destroyers will glass this entire region looking for you." She paused. "Come with us. We have questions. I'm guessing you do too." The Rangers exchanged glances. They'd fought monsters for years, learned to read situations, developed instincts for who to trust. Rita had taught them paranoia, but Zordon had taught them to recognize genuine intentions. "We're not looking for a fight," Jason said carefully. "We're just trying to get home." Hera's expression softened slightly. "Home's not on this planet, is it?" "Not even close." She gestured to her team. "Then let's get you somewhere the TIE fighters can't see you, and we'll talk." The rebel base was a collection of caves 20 kilometers northwest. Natural tunnels expanded into living quarters, armories, and command centers. It reminded Billy of the command center on Earth, except where Zordon's base felt ancient and mystical, this place felt desperate and scrappy. A dozen rebels watched the Rangers with undisguised fascination as Hera led them to a planning chamber. A holographic star map rotated above a central table. More stars than any of them had ever imagined, clustered in spiral arms and connected by glowing lines. "That's the entire galaxy," Hera said, watching their reactions. "Thousands of systems, trillions of beings, and all of it under the boot of the Galactic Empire." "One government controls everything?" Kimberly asked. Horrified. "Not a government, a dictatorship. The Emperor dissolved the Republic 20 years ago, murdered the Jedi Order, and now rules through fear and military might." Hera's voice was bitter. "We're the Rebel Alliance. We fight back. Mostly we lose, but we keep fighting." "Jedi," Tommy repeated. "Those people with the laser swords mentioned that. What are they?" A new voice answered, calm, measured, and carrying the weight of lived tragedy. A man stepped from the shadows, older, with a weathered face and sad eyes. The Jedi were peacekeepers, mystics who could touch the Force, the energy field that binds all living things together. "Kanan Jarrus," Hera introduced him. "He's one of the last Jedi left alive." Kanan studied the Rangers with an intensity that made Tommy's skin crawl. "I can sense the Force around you, but it's wrong. You're not Force sensitive, but something about you resonates with it, like you're carrying an echo from another reality." "That's because we are," Billy said. He'd made a decision, trust or don't trust, but hiding the truth wouldn't help. "We're from another dimension, another universe entirely. We were fighting a battle when something, some kind of dimensional rift, pulled us through. We're Power Rangers. We protect our world from evil, and right now, we're stranded in yours." The rebels absorbed this. To their credit, they didn't immediately call the Rangers crazy. "Power Rangers," Hera repeated. "Those suits, those machines, that's your technology." "It's called the morphing grid," Jason explained. "An energy field that spans multiple dimensions. We channel it through morphers to gain enhanced abilities. But here, in your galaxy, the connection is breaking down. Billy says we have maybe 3 days before our powers stop working entirely." Kanan moved closer, his hand resting on something at his belt. "May I see one of these morphers?" Jason hesitated, then handed over his power morpher. Kanan turned it over carefully, and the moment his fingers touched the device, his eyes widened. "This is incredible. It's not technological, not entirely. It's bioenergetic, organic and mechanical at once. And it's connected to something vast, something outside normal space." He looked at Jason with new respect. "You're channeling dimensional energy through these devices. That's why the Inquisitors couldn't kill you. Your energy field is literally operating on different rules than the Force." "Can you help us?" Trini asked. Help us get home." Kanan handed back the morpher. "I don't know, but I know someone who might understand dimensional physics better than anyone. A droid named Chopper and a mechanic named Sabine. Between them and your friend Billy, maybe we can figure something out." "And in exchange?" Jason asked. He'd learned that nothing was free. Hera didn't sugarcoat it. The Empire just saw 6 warriors and 5 impossible machines humiliate their inquisitors. Vader himself is probably en route to Lothal right now. If he catches you, he'll either kill you or worse, turn you into weapons for the Empire. We can hide you, help you repair your machines, maybe find a way home. But while you're here, you're targets, and we could use allies who can stand up to Inquisitors. "You're asking us to fight your war," Kimberly said. "I'm asking you to survive it," Hera corrected. "Whether you fight is your choice." The Rangers looked at each other. They'd sworn oaths to Zordon to protect Earth. But they were teenagers. Jason was only 18, Tommy 17. They'd been dragged into a galactic conflict they didn't understand, hunted by a military force that eclipsed anything Rita or Zed had thrown at them. "We need to discuss this," Jason said. "Team meeting, alone." Hera nodded and led the rebels out, leaving the 6 teenagers in a cavern on an alien world, trying to decide if they were heroes or survivors. The team meeting lasted 2 hours and resolved nothing. They argued in circles, stay neutral and focus on getting home versus helping people who were clearly desperate versus the fact that they knew nothing about this galaxy's conflicts. Zack pointed out they'd always helped people in danger. Trini countered that they didn't know who the real villains were here. Kimberly asked if it mattered when children were dying under Imperial rule. Billy argued they needed to prioritize survival and repairs. Jason listened to it all and said little, which was his way when the decision was impossible. It was Tommy who finally cut through the debate. "When Rita controlled me, I did terrible things. I hurt you. I hurt innocent people. And I didn't even know I was doing it because she twisted my mind." He looked around the cave at his best friends. His family. "These Inquisitors, whatever they are, they feel the same, like they're being used, twisted. I don't know this Empire, but I know what evil feels like. And it's here." "So we fight?" Zack asked. "So we help where we can while we figure out how to get home," Tommy said. "That's what Rangers do." Jason nodded slowly. "Then we're agreed. We work with the rebels, we help Billy fix the Zords, and we find a way home. But we don't get sucked into a war we don't understand. We're not soldiers. We're teenagers with superpowers, and we're a long way from Zordon's guidance." When they rejoined the rebels, Hera seemed unsurprised by their decision. She introduced them to the rest of her crew. Sabine Wren, a Mandalorian girl about their age, with armor painted in vivid colors that reminded Kimberly of their ranger suits. Ezra Bridger, a Force-sensitive kid who looked at the Rangers like they were legends. And Chopper, an astromech droid who beeped obnoxiously and made Billy's eyes light up with technical curiosity. "You're Mandalorian," Trini said to Sabine, recognizing the armor style from Imperial propaganda holos they'd been shown. "Aren't Mandalorians supposed to be Empire-friendly?" Sabine's expression hardened. "Not all of us. The Empire took everything from my people, my family, my honor. I fight for the rebellion because it's the only fight that matters." There was a story there. Pain and loss the Rangers recognized in themselves. How many times had they lost, bled, nearly died fighting Rita and Zed? "Your machines," Sabine continued, "all business. I saw the holos. They're unlike anything in Imperial or Rebel tech. Organic movement, impossible engineering. If I could examine one." "The Zords are still out there," Billy said. "We had to abandon them when the Inquisitors attacked. The morphing grid connection is too weak to remotely pilot them back here." Chopper beeped something that sounded sarcastic. Sabine translated with a smile. "He says that's the worst engineering failure he's ever heard of." Tell your droid he's welcome to try bridging dimensional energy barriers with a pocket-sized device, Billy shot back, but there was no heat in it. He recognized a kindred engineering spirit. We'll need to retrieve them, Kanan said. With Vader coming, we can't leave that kind of technology for the Empire to study. He looked at Jason. Can you lead us back to where you left them? If we morph, maybe, Jason said. But every time we do, we burn through our remaining grid connection. Billy estimated 3 days of total morph time left before the morphers shut down entirely. Kanan frowned. Then we move tonight, before Imperial scouts locate them. Hera, prep the Ghost. Rangers, rest if you can. This is going to be dangerous. As the rebels dispersed to prepare, Ezra approached Tommy cautiously. The kid was maybe 15, with shaggy dark hair and eyes that had seen too much too young, something Tommy understood intimately. You said you can feel the Force, Ezra said quietly. But Kanan says you're not Force sensitive. How's that work? Tommy considered how to explain. Where I come from, there's magic, dark magic, used by evil people to hurt and control. I was exposed to it once. It changed me, made me do things I'm not proud of. The energy here, what you call the Force, it feels similar. Especially the dark parts. The dark side, Ezra corrected. It's tempting, offers quick power, easy answers. Kanan's been teaching me to resist it, but he trailed off. But sometimes you wonder if using a little darkness to fight evil would be worth it, Tommy finished. Ezra's eyes widened. Yeah, it's not, Tommy said with absolute certainty. I've been there. When you start making deals with darkness, you lose pieces of yourself, and eventually there's nothing left but the evil wearing your face. He put a hand on Ezra's shoulder. Trust your teacher. Trust your friends. That's what saved me. Ezra nodded slowly, something settling in his expression. Thanks. I needed to hear that from someone who's been there. Meanwhile, Billy had commandeered a workstation and was deep in conversation with Chopper. The two of them rapidly exchanging technical data faster than the others could follow. Apparently, engineering brilliance transcended language barriers. The Kyber crystals they use in their weapons, Billy said excitedly to the team when they checked on him. They're force-reactive minerals that amplify and focus energy. If I could adapt the morphers to resonate with Kyber energy, it might stabilize our grid connection long enough to get home. Where do we get these crystals? Kimberly asked. That's the problem, Billy admitted. They're incredibly rare. The Empire controls most sources. The Jedi use them for their lightsabers, but with the Jedi gone. There might be one place, Kanan said, overhearing. Lothal has an ancient Jedi temple, hidden, protected by the Force itself. If there are Kyber crystals anywhere on this planet, they'd be there. Can you take us? Jason asked. It's sacred ground, Kanan said carefully. The Force protects it from those who would misuse it. I don't know if it'll even let you in. You're not Jedi, not even really Force sensitive. But I feel it, Tommy said. The Force, maybe that's enough. Maybe, Kanan agreed. But first we retrieve your machines. Then we'll see if the Force is willing to help Rangers from another reality. Night fell on Lothal, a deeper darkness than any on Earth, with unfamiliar constellations and twin moons casting long shadows. The Ghost, the Rebels' ship, cut through the darkness on silent repulsors, carrying 6 Rangers and a crew of Rebels on a mission that would determine whether they lived or died in this alien galaxy. Aboard the Relentless, Darth Vader stood before a hologram of Emperor Palpatine, his master's hooded face flickering in the blue light. These warriors concern you, Palpatine observed. They are anomalous, my master. Their power operates outside the Force, yet influences it. They defeated Inquisitors with ease. Their technology is beyond our understanding. And you believe they can be turned, made into weapons for the Empire? Vader's respirator hissed. One of them is vulnerable. I sense darkness in him, buried trauma. If I can isolate him from the others, he could be useful. Then do so, Lord Vader. But if they prove intractable, eliminate them. We cannot allow unknown powers to threaten our order. Yes, my master. The hologram faded. Vader turned to the viewport, watching Lothal turn slowly below. Somewhere on that world, 6 warriors from another reality were trying to survive. He would find them. He would break them, or he would destroy them. The dark side demanded nothing less. The ghost touched down 3 kilometers from where the Zords had fallen, using a canyon network to mask its approach from orbital sensors. The Rangers stood at the cargo ramp, morphed and ready despite the warning flicker in their power levels. Their suits held stable for now, but each could feel the morphing grid connection straining like an overtaxed engine. 2-hour window, Hera said from the cockpit. After that, Imperial patrol patterns will bring Star Destroyers directly overhead. We get in, secure your machines, and get out. The Zords aren't exactly portable, Zack pointed out. They weigh hundreds of tons each. Chopper's rigging a hyperspace tether, Sabine explained, checking her Mandalorian helmet's HUD. It's experimental, but theoretically we can lock onto your machine's energy signatures and jump them to a safe location. Theoretically. I love when plans involve the word theoretically, Kimberly muttered. They moved through the darkness in 2 groups, Rangers with Kanan and Ezra, while Sabine and Chopper circled wide to set up the tether array. The Lothal wilderness was eerily quiet, just wind through dead grass and the distant hum of Imperial patrol craft. Tommy felt it first, that presence in the Force, vast and cold and approaching. He grabbed Jason's arm. Something's wrong. Something big is coming. Kanan froze, his hand moving to his lightsaber. I feel it too. We need to move. Now. They crested a ridge and saw the Zords where they'd fallen. 5 mechanical titans lying dormant in a blast crater, their armor scorched but intact. The Tyrannosaurus, Mastodon, Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, and Pteranodon looked almost peaceful in the moonlight, like sleeping gods from another age. Billy, can you activate them remotely? Jason asked. Billy was already working, his morpher interfacing with the Zord systems. Power reserves are low, but they're functional. I can bring them online, but without full Megazord capability, they're vulnerable to concentrated Imperial... The sky tore open with light. Star Destroyers dropped out of hyperspace directly above them, their wedge-shaped hulls blotting out the stars. Searchlights stabbed down, illuminating the Zords in harsh white glare. They knew, Trini said. They were waiting for us to come back. From the lead Star Destroyer, a Lambda-class shuttle descended, flanked by TIE fighters in perfect formation. The shuttle touched down 200 meters away, its ramp extending with mechanical precision. And Darth Vader walked out. The Rangers had fought monsters, aliens, and interdimensional wizards. They'd faced evil in 100 forms and never flinched. But there was something about Vader that made them hesitate. A presence that crushed the air from lungs, a darkness so absolute it felt like gravity. He stood 7 feet tall in black armor that drank the light, his cape billowing despite the still air, his breathing a mechanical rasp that echoed across the battlefield. Behind him, 50 stormtroopers deployed in perfect ranks. The anomalies, Vader's voice carried, amplified and terrible. You will surrender your technology and yourselves to the Empire. Resist, and you will be terminated. Yeah, we're not big on the whole surrender thing, Zack called back, trying to sound confident despite the fear crawling up his spine. Vader raised one gloved hand. The Force seized Zack and lifted him 15 feet into the air, invisible pressure crushing his ribs despite his morphed suit's protection. Zack choked, clawing at his throat. Zack! Jason charged forward, Red Ranger speed propelling him across the distance. Vader didn't even look at him. A casual force push sent Jason tumbling backward through the air. Tommy felt the dark side surge, felt that terrible pull he'd been resisting since arriving in this galaxy. Part of him, the part that remembered being the evil Green Ranger, whispered that he could use it, could channel it the way he'd channeled Rita's magic, could save his friends. "No," he said through gritted teeth. "Not again." Kanan's lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss of blue plasma. "Let him go, Vader!" "Another failed Jedi," Vader observed, his respirator hissing. "Your kind should have learned extinction's lessons." He gestured, and Kanan flew sideways into a boulder with bone-breaking force. Ezra screamed and ignited his own lightsaber, but Vader simply force-pulled the weapon from the boy's grip and sent it spinning into the darkness. The Rangers regrouped, forming a defensive circle. They'd fought overwhelming odds before, but Vader was something else entirely. Raw power wrapped in calculated brutality, every movement economical and devastating. "Billy, the Zords," Jason said quietly. "Any way to activate them?" "Not without full morphing power, and that means burning through our remaining grid connection." "I know. Do it anyway." "We're dead if we don't." Billy's hands flew across his morpher's interface. The Zord's eyes began to glow, red, black, blue, yellow, pink. Ancient machinery stirring to life with a roar that shook the ground. Vader's head tilted slightly, the only indication of surprise. Impressive, but insufficient. He raised both hands. The Force, channeled through one of the most powerful Sith Lords in galactic history, seized the Tyrannosaurus Dinozord and began to crush it. Metal shrieked as the Force compressed armor plating designed to withstand Rita's magic. Warning klaxons wailed inside the cockpit. "He's tearing it apart," Billy shouted. The other Zords activated their weapons systems, freeze breath, sonic attacks, laser cannons. But Vader deflected each assault with contemptuous ease, the Force bending reality around him. "We need the Megazord," Jason said. The decision was instant, absolute. "Full combination, now!" "Jason, that could destroy the Morphers," Billy protested. "Then we fight unmorphed. Tommy, Zack, Kimberly, Trini, Billy. Megazord sequence, go!" The 5 Rangers channeled every remaining ounce of morphing grid energy through their morphers. The devices screamed electromagnetic warnings as dimensional energy flooded through dimensional barriers that were never meant to bear this load. The Zords responded, their combination sequence initiating with thunderous, mechanical precision. Legs combining, arms locking, torso connecting, head emerging. The Megazord stood, a 100-foot humanoid colossus towering over the battlefield, its eyes blazing with unstable power. Vader actually stepped backward. The Megazord's fist came down where Vader had been standing a microsecond before, cratering the ground with city-leveling force. Vader was already in motion, leaping with force-enhanced agility onto the Megazord's arm, his lightsaber carving through armor that had withstood planetary bombardments. But the morphing grid energy destabilized his connection to the Force, the same way it had disrupted the Inquisitors. Vader's movements became fractionally slower, his precognition clouded by dimensional interference. Inside the Megazord's cockpit, the Rangers fought to maintain control as their morphers overheated. Jason's hands moved across controls that were melting under his grip. Zack coordinated leg movements, while his morpher sparked and died. Billy calculated attack trajectories as his visor flickered out entirely. "We've got one shot," Jason shouted. "Power Sword." The Megazord's hand reached skyward. Lightning, or something like it, dimensional energy given form, coalesced into a massive blade. The Power Sword materialized, crackling with unstable grid energy, that made Vader's lightsaber look like a candle before a sun. Vader sensed the danger. He leaped clear as the Megazord brought the sword down in an overhead slash that split the ground for a quarter mile, the shockwave knocking stormtroopers off their feet and sending TIE fighters spinning out of control. But the effort was too much. The morphers, already strained beyond tolerances, shattered. All 5 of them, simultaneously, in cascades of sparks and dying light. The Megazord froze mid-swing, its combination integrity failing. The Zords separated and crashed to the ground, inert and powerless. The Rangers tumbled out of their cockpits, no longer morphed, just 6 teenagers in civilian clothes hitting the dirt hard. Jason's morpher was a smoking ruin on his belt. So were the others. "No," Billy whispered, staring at his destroyed morpher. "No, no, no." Vader approached through the settling dust, his lightsaber ignited and humming. The stormtroopers advanced with him, weapons raised. There was no escape, no last-minute save, no miracle. "You fought well," Vader said, his mechanical voice almost respectful. "But your powers are broken, your machines are offline, and now you are simply children who will learn what mercy the Empire does not offer." He raised his lightsaber for the killing blow, and Hera Syndulla's voice crackled over a loudspeaker. "Fire!" the ghost screamed overhead, its cannons tearing into the Imperial formation. Sabine's missiles arced from the ridgeline, creating a wall of explosions between the Rangers and Vader. Chopper's hyperspace tether locked onto the Zords, and reality screamed as 5 mechanical dinosaurs vanished into hyperspace, leaving only afterimages. "Get to the ship!" Kanan shouted, limping but alive, using the Force to shield the Rangers from blaster fire. They ran. No powers, no Zords, no morphers. Just 6 teenagers sprinting for their lives while rebels provided covering fire, and Darth Vader's rage manifested as a force storm that hurled debris skyward. The Ghost's ramp was lowering, Hera screaming at them to move faster. They dove aboard, Kanan and Ezra right behind them, and the ship's engines howled as it clawed for altitude. Vader watched them escape, his fist clenched. The Force whispered possibilities. He could pull the ship down, crush it like foil. But something stayed his hand. These warriors were more interesting alive, especially the one in white, the one who felt the darkness calling. "Let them run," Vader said quietly. "They cannot hide forever." The Ghost's medbay was designed for a crew of 5, not 11. The Rangers sat in various states of shock and injury, while Sabine played field medic, her Mandalorian training making her surprisingly gentle as she treated blaster grazes and impact wounds. None of the injuries were life-threatening, but the emotional damage ran deeper. Jason stared at the remains of his morpher, a melted husk of circuits and shattered crystal that had once been his connection to the morphing grid, to Zordon, to everything that made him a Power Ranger. The others' morphers looked identical, destroyed beyond any hope of repair. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I made the call to form Megazord. I knew it could destroy the morphers, and I did it anyway." "You saved our lives," Trini said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Vader would have killed us all. Now we're stranded here forever," Kimberly said, not unkindly but stating the terrible truth. "No powers, no way home, no way to even contact Zordon." Billy had spread the morpher components across a workbench, his hands moving with desperate precision as he tried to assess the damage. Chopper beeped helpfully beside him, offering tools and diagnostic readouts that Billy accepted with mechanical efficiency. "The power coins are intact," Billy said finally. "That's something. The coins themselves are the actual connection to the morphing grid. The morphers were just interface devices. Theoretically, if I could construct new morphers and recalibrate them to the coin's frequencies." He trailed off, seeing the problem. "But you don't have the materials," Sabine finished. or the technology, or any idea how to replicate dimensional energy manipulation in a galaxy that's never even heard of the morphing grid. Theoretically, Billy repeated, the word bitter this time. Hera emerged from the cockpit, her expression grim. We jumped to hyperspace blind to avoid Imperial pursuit. Bought us maybe 6 hours before Vader triangulates our position. The Zords rematerialized in the asteroid field near Ryloth. Choppers sending the coordinates to resistance cells there for safekeeping, but without your powers. We're just normal humans in a war we're not equipped to fight, Zack finished. Yeah, we get it. Tommy hadn't spoken since they'd escaped. He sat apart from the others, arms wrapped around his knees, his white shirt still stained with dirt and blood. Ezra approached carefully, recognizing the signs of someone drowning in their own head. You okay? Ezra asked. When Vader was crushing Zack, when he was going to kill all of you. Tommy's voice was barely above a whisper. I felt it again. The darkness, the same power Rita used to control me. And part of me wanted to use it, wanted to channel the dark side the way I channeled her evil, just for long enough to save you guys. But you didn't, Ezra pointed out. Because I remembered what it cost last time. But Ezra, what if that's the only way we survive here? What if the only power available to us in this galaxy is the one that'll turn us into the things we fight? Ezra sat beside him. Kanan says the dark side always promises easy solutions, quick power, simple answers. But it's a lie. The power comes with chains. I know, Tommy said. I wore those chains. But without the morphing grid, he looked at his destroyed morpher. What are we supposed to do? Kanan overheard, his Jedi senses attuned to emotional distress. He lowered himself onto a supply crate, wincing from the impact with the boulder. You said your power comes from a dimensional energy field, that you channel it through discipline and teamwork. The morphing grid, Billy confirmed. It's not magic exactly, and it's not technology exactly. It's both, simultaneously. Bioenergetic enhancement through dimensional energy channeling. The Force is similar, Kanan said thoughtfully. An energy field created by all living things, surrounding and binding the galaxy. Jedi learn to channel it through meditation, training, and connection to life itself. The difference is, you're channeling energy from outside this reality. Which is why we can't just learn to use the Force, Jason said, following the logic. We're not Force sensitive. Our powers worked because they came from somewhere else. Not necessarily, Kanan said slowly. An idea was forming, one so crazy it might actually work. Billy, you said the power coins are intact. They're still connected to your morphing grid, just across an impossible distance. Right, but without morphers to amplify and focus that connection. What if we use the Force as an amplifier? Kanan's eyes lit up with the possibility. The Jedi Temple on Lothal. It's a focal point of Force energy, a place where the barrier between the physical and metaphysical is thin. If we brought your coins there, exposed them to concentrated Force energy in a place of power, the Force might resonate with the morphing grid, Billy finished, his analytical mind racing ahead. Create a sympathetic frequency that bridges the dimensional gap. It's like using one energy field to boost the signal of another. Would it work? Jason asked. I have no idea, Kanan admitted. This is completely unprecedented, but the Force is about connection, about bringing disparate things into harmony. If anything in this galaxy can help you reconnect with your power source, it's the Force itself. And the Kyber crystals, Billy added, excited now despite himself. If they're in the temple, they could provide the stabilizing medium we need. Crystal matrices excellent for energy focusing and amplification. Sabine looked between them. You want to break into a Jedi temple, use ancient Force artifacts, and hope that dimensional energy and galactic mysticism play nice with each other. When you say it like that, it sounds insane, Kimberly said. It is insane, Hera said from the doorway. It's also the only plan we have. But there's a problem. Vader knows you're on Lothal now. He'll have every Inquisitor, every Star Destroyer, every asset searching for you. The temple is protected by the Force, hidden from those who would misuse it. But the journey there, getting you inside, that's when you'll be most vulnerable. Then we move fast, Jason decided. The leadership tone was back in his voice, the certainty that had carried them through impossible situations. How long to reach this temple? The Ghost can get us there in 2 hours, Hera said. But we'll need to land a significant distance away and approach on foot. The temple doesn't respond well to aggressive technology. It's a place of meditation, peace. Going in armed and angry tends to backfire. Then we go in respectfully, Tommy said. He stood, shaking off the darkness that had been clinging to him. We ask for help, not demand it. Show the Force that we're not here to conquer or corrupt. The temple has tests, Kanan warned. The Force will judge you, show you truths you might not want to see. It broke Ezra the first time we went there, and you're not even Force sensitive. We've been tested before, Trini said quietly. By Zordon, by Rita, by every monster that tried to destroy our world. If the Force wants to judge us, let it. We've got nothing to hide. Zack managed a weak smile. Speak for yourself. I've got plenty to hide. The tension broke slightly, nervous laughter rippling through the Rangers. They were terrified, stranded, powerless, but they were still a team. Still the 6 teenagers who'd been chosen to protect Earth. And if they had to prove themselves to an ancient mystical energy field in a galaxy far from home, well, it wouldn't even crack their top 10 weirdest experiences. Set course for the temple, Jason told Hera. She nodded and returned to the cockpit. The Ghost's engines hummed as they changed trajectory, racing across Lothal's surface toward ancient secrets and desperate hopes. In his meditation chamber aboard the Relentless, Darth Vader felt the shift in the Force. The anomalies were moving, heading towards something significant. He reached out through the dark side, searching, and felt the echo of the Jedi Temple. Clever, he said softly. His respirator hissed in the darkness. You seek the power of the light to restore what you've lost, but the temple will break you as it broke so many before. And when you emerge, shattered and weak, I will be waiting. He stood and walked toward the command deck. Prepare my shuttle. The Inquisitors will accompany me. And alert Grand Moff Tarkin. I want a full orbital blockade of Lothal. Nothing leaves the surface. Nothing. The hunt was entering its final phase. The Jedi Temple of Lothal rose from the plains like a memory-made stone. Ancient, weathered, and somehow alive. It didn't look like the technological marvels the Rangers had seen across the galaxy. Instead, it was organic architecture, as if the building had grown from the earth rather than been constructed. Spires reached skyward like fingers, and the entrance was sealed by massive stone doors covered in symbols that predated the Galactic Republic itself. The Ghost had landed 5 kilometers away, and the team approached on foot as the twin suns set behind them. Rangers, rebels, and one astromech droid moving through grasslands that seemed to ripple with energy even the non-Force sensitives could feel. It knows we're here, Kanan said quietly. The temple is aware. It's deciding whether to open. Can it do that? Kimberly asked. Decide, I mean. The Force is conscious in ways we don't fully understand, Kanan explained. And places of power like this, where thousands of Jedi meditated over millennia, they develop a kind of awareness. The temple guards its secrets. Only those who approach with pure intentions and open hearts are granted entry. What happens to the others? Zack asked. The temple shows them their failures, their fears, their darkness. Most flee. Some are broken. A few. Kanan gestured to Ezra. Learn what they needed to learn. They reached the entrance. The massive doors loomed 30 feet high, their surface covered in high galactic script and geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally. Billy's analytical mind tried to parse the mathematics, but the equations defied standard dimensional physics. Now what? Jason asked. Now we ask permission, Kanan said. He placed his palm against the door and closed his eyes. The force flowed through him, carrying a wordless request, sanctuary, wisdom, aid for those who needed it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Tommy felt it. That ocean of energy he'd been sensing since arrival, suddenly focused and intense. The temple was looking at them, examining them with senses beyond sight. It felt like standing before Zordon for the first time, being judged worthy or unworthy of the power. The doors ground open with a sound like mountains moving. Warm light spilled out, golden and inviting, and the scent of something ancient and clean rolled over them. It's welcoming you, Kanan said, clearly surprised. That's unusual. The temple is normally far more suspicious of outsiders. Maybe it recognizes them, Ezra suggested. Like calls to like, they channel dimensional energy. The temple is a focal point of galactic energy. Maybe the Force sees them as kindred. Or maybe it pities us, Trini said quietly. 6 kids way too far from home. They entered. The interior was vast, a central chamber with a vaulted ceiling that seemed to contain its own sky, stars glimmering despite being inside. Pillars carved from single pieces of stone supported impossible architecture, and in the center stood a raised dais with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light. Kyber crystals, Billy breathed. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all naturally formed and force-attuned. The temple's heart, Kanan confirmed. This is where Jedi would come to construct their lightsabers, to meditate on the Force's will. If anywhere on Lothal can help you, it's here. The Rangers approached the dais slowly, reverently. Even without their powers, they understood sacred spaces. The command center had felt similar, a place where the mundane and mystical intersected. Jason removed his shattered morpher and placed it on the dais. One by one, the others did the same, arranging the 5 destroyed devices in a circle. Then they extracted the power coins, Tyrannosaurus, Mastodon, Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, Pteranodon, and placed each in its corresponding morpher. The coins gleamed in the temple's light, their colors vivid despite the destruction around them. And for just a moment, Billy could have sworn he felt it, the faintest whisper of the morphing grid, like a voice calling from unimaginable distance. Now what? Kimberly asked. Now you open yourselves to the Force, Kanan said. Sit, meditate, let it flow through you. Don't try to control it or demand anything. Just be present, be honest. Let the Force see who you are. We're not Force sensitive, Jason reminded him. No, Kanan agreed. But you're power sensitive. You've been channeling dimensional energy for years. The principle is similar. You just need to change the frequency you're listening to. The Rangers sat in a circle around their morphers, cross-legged on the ancient stone. The rebels hung back, giving them space. Chopper beeped quietly, his sensors detecting energy fluctuations that defied analysis. Close your eyes, Kanan instructed. Breathe. Feel the temple around you, the energy in the air. Don't reach for it. Let it come to you. They did. And slowly, gradually, each Ranger felt something shift. For Jason, the Force manifested as responsibility, the weight of every decision, every command that had led teammates into danger. He saw the moment he'd ordered the Megazord formation, knowing it might destroy their only way home. Saw the faces of his team trusting him despite fear. The Force asked, "Was it worth it? Would you make the same choice again?" "Yes," Jason said aloud. "Every time, because that's what leaders do, make impossible choices so their team doesn't have to." The Force seemed to approve. For Zack, the Force showed him fear disguised as humor, every joke masking terror, every quip covering doubt. The times he'd wanted to run, to quit, to let someone else be the Black Ranger. The Force asked, "What makes you stay?" "Them," Zack whispered. "My friends. I'd never abandon them, even if I'm scared. Especially if I'm scared." The Force resonated with that truth. For Kimberly, the Force revealed strength that had nothing to do with martial arts, the strength to be feminine in a violent world, to be compassionate without weakness, to be the heart that kept the team human. The Force asked, "Is gentleness a liability?" "No," Kimberly said firmly. "It's armor. The world needs people who remember mercy." The Force embraced her certainty. For Trini, the Force peeled back layers of quiet competence to show the fear beneath, fear of inadequacy, of not measuring up, of being the teammate everyone forgets. The Force asked, "Does being overlooked diminish your worth?" "Worth isn't about recognition," Trini said. "It's about knowing who you are when no one's watching." The Force acknowledged her wisdom. For Billy, the Force showed him the loneliness of genius, the isolation of understanding things others couldn't, of seeing solutions that felt obvious but weren't. The constant struggle to translate brilliance into terms his friends could grasp. The Force asked, "Does intelligence separate you from those you love?" "Intelligence is just a tool," Billy said. "What matters is using it to help people, not prove I'm smarter." The Force respected his humility. And for Tommy, the Force dove deep into darkness, the memories of being evil, of hurting his friends, of Rita's corruption. It showed him the paths he could take, light, dark, or the razor's edge between. The Force asked the question he'd been dreading. "Are you afraid you'll fall again?" "Terrified," Tommy admitted. "Every day, the darkness is always there, always whispering. But I choose not to listen. That's the difference. I choose." The Force paused, considering. Then something shifted, and Tommy felt acceptance. Not forgiveness, because the Force didn't judge, but recognition that he'd walked through hell and come back himself. The temple's light intensified. The Kyber crystals began to hum, their frequency building until it was almost musical. The power coins responded, glowing with their signature colors, red, black, pink, yellow, blue, brighter than they'd been since arriving in this galaxy. And the morphing grid answered. It was faint, stretched across dimensional barriers that should have been impenetrable, but it was there. Zordon's voice, distant as a dream. Rangers, still connected, fighting. Believe. The message broke up, more feeling than words, but the meaning was clear. The morphing grid hadn't abandoned them. Zordon was fighting to maintain the connection, to pull them home. But they needed to hold on, needed to survive long enough for him to find a way. Billy's eyes snapped open. It's working. The Force is creating a resonance bridge. The Kyber crystals are amplifying the morphing grid signal. His hands flew to his destroyed morpher, and he saw what needed to be done. We need to rebuild the morphers using Kyber crystals as the focusing array, he said rapidly. Replace the shattered components with Force-reactive material. It won't be permanent, but it'll stabilize the grid connection long enough to... The temple shook. Not physically, something worse. A disturbance in the Force so violent it felt like reality bending. Kanan's eyes went wide with horror. No, he can't be here. The temple should have kept him out. Who? Jason demanded. "Vader," Kanan whispered. "He's at the entrance, and he's not asking permission." Outside the temple, Darth Vader stood before the sealed doors that had opened so willingly for the Rangers. Behind him, 3 Inquisitors waited, the 5th brother, 7th sister, and 3rd sister, their lightsabers ready, their presence in the Force twisted and dark. The temple doors remained shut. "Open," Vader commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. The doors didn't move. Vader raised one hand. The Force, channeled through raw dark side power, seized the stone and began to tear it apart. The ancient doors, designed to resist armies, cracked under the assault. Stones screamed and kyber crystals shattered as Vader literally ripped his way into sacred ground. "The temple rejects you," the 5th brother observed. "The temple will learn," Vader said, "that rejection is meaningless before sufficient power." The doors exploded inward. Vader walked through the rubble, his lightsaber igniting with a crimson hiss that sounded like a promise of violence. Inside, the Rangers felt his approach, a darkness so absolute it made the air hard to breathe. "He's coming," Tommy said, standing, "and he's not stopping." "The morphers aren't ready," Billy protested, surrounded by components and kyber crystals working frantically to retrofit the destroyed devices. "Then we buy you time," Jason said. He looked at his team, his family. "Rangers, we've fought morphed and unmorphed. We've faced armies and gods. This is just one more battle. One more battle against a Sith Lord who almost killed us last time," Zack pointed out. "Then we better get creative," Jason said. "Because we're not dying in a temple on an alien world. We're going home." Vader's footsteps echoed through the chamber, getting closer, inevitable as death itself. The temple's central chamber became a battlefield the moment Vader crossed the threshold. The Dark Lord's presence was a physical weight, the dark side manifesting as frost on ancient stone and dimming the kyber crystal's light. The Inquisitors flanked him, their spinning lightsabers casting violent shadows across walls that had known only meditation for millennia. 6 children, Vader observed, his mechanical voice echoing. "Playing at heroism in a galaxy that will devour you. Surrender now. Your powers are broken. Your machines are captured. You have nothing left with which to resist." "We've got plenty," Jason said, stepping forward. No morpher, no powers, just a teenager in torn civilian clothes facing the second most powerful being in the galaxy. "We've got each other." "Loyalty," Vader said, almost contemplative. "An admirable weakness. I will enjoy teaching you how the Empire crushes such sentiments." He moved. The Force propelled him forward faster than human perception, lightsaber descending in a strike that would bisect Jason from shoulder to hip. But years of fighting morphed and unmorphed had taught the Rangers to read body language, to anticipate attacks before they landed. Jason wasn't where Vader's blade fell. He'd already rolled left, coming up with a chunk of broken stone that he hurled with desperate strength. Vader deflected it with contemptuous ease, but the moment of distraction was enough for Trini and Kimberly to flank him, attacking in the synchronized pattern that had defeated monsters across dimensions. Trini went low, sweeping at Vader's legs. Kimberly went high, a spinning kick aimed at his helmet. Neither strike connected. Vader caught Trini's leg with the Force and slammed her into a pillar, while his free hand seized Kimberly's ankle, mid-kick, and threw her across the chamber. But they'd bought seconds, and seconds mattered. "Keep him busy," Billy shouted, his hands working frantically. The kyber crystals were responding to his modifications, their force-reactive properties allowing them to interface with the morphing grid energy in ways that normal technology couldn't. But retrofitting 5 morphers with entirely alien components, while a Sith Lord tried to murder his friends, was not optimal working conditions. Zack charged Vader from behind, pure human courage propelling him into a fight he couldn't win. Vader didn't even turn around. A force push sent Zack tumbling, and the Black Ranger crashed into a stone bench hard enough to crack ribs. Tommy moved to intercept, but the seventh sister was already there, her lightsaber spinning. "I'll handle this one," she purred. "Lord Vader wants the broken Jedi, but I'll settle for the conflicted child." Their fight became a deadly dance, Tommy's martial arts against the sister's lightsaber technique. He had no weapon, no powers, just years of training and muscle memory. He ducked under her horizontal slash, drove his palm into her solar plexus, and twisted away from her retaliatory strike with an inch to spare. "You feel the dark side calling," the sister said, her voice mocking. "I sense it in you. The hunger for power, the memory of corruption. Join us. Become an inquisitor. We could teach you to channel what you fear." "I've heard that pitch before," Tommy grunted, deflecting her blade with a steel pipe he'd grabbed from the rubble. The pipe lasted exactly one strike before melting. Turns out evil's not that original. The fifth brother engaged Kanan, Jedi against fallen Jedi, blue lightsaber against red. Ezra fought the third sister, his youth and desperation against her experience and sadism. The rebels provided cover fire, but blasters were useless against lightsaber wielders who could deflect bolts with casual precision. Sabine had resorted to thermal detonators, less precise, harder to deflect. One exploded near the fifth brother, forcing him to disengage from Kanan to avoid the shrapnel. Chopper was doing something with the temple's systems, beeping frantically as he tried to interface with Jedi technology that predated his programming by millennia. And in the center of the chaos, Vader walked toward Billy with inexorable purpose. "Your friends die to buy you minutes," Vader said. "But minutes will not save you. I have battled Jedi Masters, crushed rebellions, brought star systems to heal. What can one child accomplish that would threaten me?" Billy didn't answer. His hands moved with frantic precision, soldering kyber fragments into circuits that had never been designed for force-reactive components. The morphing grid energy was responding, the connection strengthening as the crystals resonated with dimensional frequencies. Almost there. 30 more seconds. 25. Vader raised his lightsaber. Jason threw himself between them. A human shield with nothing but conviction. "You want him? Go through me." "Very well." Vader's blade came down. Jason couldn't dodge, couldn't defend, could only stand there and hope the sacrifice bought enough time. Tommy's hand shot out, and something impossible happened. The dark side energy Vader had been channeling suddenly twisted, redirected by Tommy's desperate instinct. Not controlled, not mastered, but touched. Just enough to deflect Vader's strike by inches. Vader froze. "You touched the dark side, without training, without permission." There was something almost like respect in his mechanical voice. "You have more potential than I realized." "I didn't," Tommy started, horror in his voice. He'd felt it, the same darkness that Rita had used to corrupt him, and he'd reflexively channeled it to save Jason. "I didn't mean to, but you did," Vader pressed. "And you will again. The dark side flows through you naturally, boy. Stop resisting. Join me. Become what you were meant to be." For one terrible heartbeat, Tommy considered it. Not seriously, not really, but the whisper was there. What if Vader's right? What if I'm meant for darkness? Then he looked at Jason, at his team, at the people who'd pulled him back from evil once before. "My name's Tommy," he said quietly. "And I decide what I'm meant to be." He charged Vader. Unarmed, unpowered, impossibly outmatched, but absolutely certain. The Dark Lord's lightsaber came up, and this time there'd be no last-second save, no miracle, just a teenager's courage ending in plasma fire. "Morphers online!" Billy's shout echoed through the temple. "Power coins!" Activate! 5 pillars of colored light erupted from the dais. Red, black, pink, yellow, blue, as the retrofitted morphers came online. The morphing grid energy, stabilized by kyber crystals and amplified by the temple's force nexus, surged across dimensional barriers that shouldn't have been crossable. The Rangers didn't hesitate. It's morphin time! Their hands found morphers that were no longer broken, but reformed, jury-rigged, held together by kyber crystals and desperate engineering, but functional. The familiar energy washed over them as they struck their poses. Tyrannosaurus, Mastodon, Pteranodon, Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger. And in brilliant flashes that lit the temple like a star, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers returned. Vader actually stepped back as 5 armored warriors materialized where frightened teenagers had stood moments before. Their suits gleamed with new energy, the kyber crystal modifications creating subtle differences, faint geometric patterns in their armor that glowed with force resonance, helmets that integrated Jedi aesthetic into Ranger design. Jason's voice came through his helmet, amplified and confident. Round 2, Vader. This time we're ready. The Red Ranger moved, and his speed was enhanced beyond even normal Ranger levels. The kyber crystals weren't just stabilizing the morphing grid, they were augmenting it, letting force energy blend with dimensional power in unprecedented ways. Vader's lightsaber met Jason's morphed fist, and instead of cutting through, the blade skittered across armor that now actively repelled force-based attacks. The collision created a shockwave that cracked stone. Zack and Trini flanked Vader in perfect synchronization, Black and Yellow Rangers attacking with enhanced strength that drove the Sith Lord backward for the first time in the engagement. Kimberly's aerial attacks came from angles Vader couldn't predict. The Force warned him of danger, but her kyber-enhanced movements operated on quantum probability patterns that defied precognition. Billy stayed back, analyzing the fight with Ranger suit sensors that now interfaced with the Temple's force awareness. The kyber integration is creating harmonic interference with his force connection. He can't read our moves as clearly. Tommy faced the Seventh Sister again, but this time he was morphed, armored, and had spent years mastering the White Ranger powers. Their fight became a blur of motion, her lightsaber against his enhanced martial arts, her force abilities against his dimensional energy. She was skilled, trained by the Empire's best. But Tommy had fought himself when he was evil, had battled the Green Ranger's corruption, and that experience made him ruthless in ways she couldn't match. His White Ranger suit's energy manifested as a blade of pure light, not a lightsaber, but something similar, a dimensional construct that his kyber-modified morpher could now create. The sister's eyes widened behind her mask as she realized she was outmatched. "Impossible," she breathed. "You're not Jedi." "We're Rangers," Tommy said, and his energy blade shattered her lightsaber, sending her stumbling backward. "And we don't give up." Vader was fighting all 5 Rangers simultaneously now, his dark side mastery pushed to its limits. Every strike was parried, every force attack deflected by bioenergetic fields that operated on rules the Force had never encountered. The Inquisitors moved to support him, but Kanan and Ezra intercepted, their lightsabers blazing. For the first time since Mustafar, since becoming more machine than man, Darth Vader felt something he'd almost forgotten: uncertainty. These warriors operated outside the Force's jurisdiction. Their power came from beyond the galaxy's natural order. And now, enhanced by kyber crystals and temple energy, they were fighting him to a standstill. "Retreat," Vader commanded the Inquisitors. "This battle serves no purpose." "Lord Vader," the 5th brother sounded shocked. "Now!" The Inquisitors disengaged, their lightsabers spinning as they backed toward the entrance. Vader himself force pushed the Rangers back, not enough to harm them through their suits, but enough to create distance. "This changes nothing," Vader said, his respirator hissing with something that might have been grudging respect. "You have power, but the Empire has armies. You have courage, but we have Star Destroyers. You are 6. We are infinite." "Then we'll just have to beat you one at a time," Jason said. Vader studied them for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the temple, the Inquisitors scrambling to follow. The darkness lifted as he departed, and the temple's light gradually returned to its peaceful golden glow. The Rangers stood in the aftermath, morphed and powerful, surrounded by rebels who'd just witnessed the impossible. "Did we just—" Zack started. "Make Vader retreat," Kimberly finished. "Yeah, we did." Billy was already running diagnostics. "The morphers are stable. The Kyber crystals are maintaining the grid connection. We're functional again." But even as relief washed over them, Jason looked at the temple's entrance, where Vader had departed. The Sith Lord had retreated, yes, but something in his final words suggested this wasn't over, not by a long shot. "Hera," Jason said, "we need to talk strategy, because Vader was right about one thing. We're 6 people, and the Empire has armies." "Then we better make sure those 6 people count for a lot," Hera said with a fierce smile. "Welcome to the Rebellion, Rangers." The rebel base on Lothal had transformed into a command center within hours of the Rangers' return from the temple. Holograms displayed Imperial fleet positions, 3 Star Destroyers in low orbit, TIE fighter patrols blanketing the atmosphere, and ground forces converging on every known rebel position. Vader wasn't retreating. He was preparing for total war. "He's going to glass the entire region," Hera said, studying the tactical display. "Orbital bombardment. He'll destroy everything within a 100-kilometer radius rather than let us escape." "Can't we just jump to hyperspace?" Kimberly asked. "Get off-world before he can?" "The Empire's established a blockade," Kanan explained, highlighting the hologram. "Those Star Destroyers have gravity well projectors. Nothing can enter or leave hyperspace within their range. We're trapped." Jason studied the display with the tactical mind that had led the Rangers through countless battles. "Then we take out the blockade. The Zords are at Ryloth. Can we get them back?" "Chopper's working on recalibrating the hyperspace tether," Sabine said. "But even if we retrieve your machines, 3 Star Destroyers is a lot of firepower. Your Zords are tough, but can they withstand sustained turbolaser bombardment?" "The Megazord can," Billy said. He'd been analyzing the Kyber crystal modifications, running calculations that made his eyes light up with scientific joy despite the desperate situation. "The force enhancement isn't just stabilizing our connection, it's augmenting the Zord's defensive capabilities. The crystalline matrix creates a harmonic resonance field that should disperse energy weapons." "Should," Zack repeated. 87% confidence, Billy amended. "Give or take 12% margin of error." "So basically a coin flip," Trini said dryly. "A very educated coin flip," Billy protested. Tommy had been silent, standing apart from the group, staring at his morphed hands. The white Ranger suit gleamed with new energy, but he could still feel it, the dark side, closer now that he'd touched it during the fight with Vader. The others noticed his distance. "Tommy," Jason approached. "You okay?" "I used the dark side," Tommy said quietly. "When Vader was about to kill you, I reached out and I touched it. Didn't even think, just reacted, and it responded like it knew me." "You saved my life," Jason said firmly. "This time. But what about next time? What if I keep touching it, keep using it, until I can't tell the difference between Ranger power and dark side power?" Tommy's voice carried old fear, memories of Rita's corruption. "I've been evil before, Jason. I know how easy it is to slide." Kanan had been listening. He stepped closer, his Jedi wisdom tempered by experience. The dark side is always there, Tommy. It's part of the Force, part of existence. What matters isn't that you touched it. What matters is what you did after. You didn't embrace it, didn't let it control you. You used it to save someone you love, then you let it go. That's the difference between falling and choosing, Ezra added, joining them. I felt the pull too. Every Force sensitive does, but you get to decide every single time who you want to be. Tommy looked at his team, his family, the people who'd pulled him back from darkness before and would do it again if needed. Okay, he said finally. Okay, but if I start slipping, if any of you see me going dark, we'll kick your ass back to the light side, Zack said with a grin. That's what teams are for. The moment of levity was shattered by alarms. Chopper shrieked warnings as the tactical display exploded with red indicators. Imperial forces were moving, converging on their position from every direction. They found us, Hera said, already running for the Ghost's cockpit. Everyone, battle stations. The Rangers morphed in unison, the familiar sequence now enhanced by Kyber energy. Their suits materialized with geometric patterns that glowed with Force resonance, and they felt the morphing grid connection stronger than it had been since arriving in this galaxy. Chopper, bring in the Zords, Jason commanded. Billy, can you pilot them remotely? Already on it, Billy confirmed, his morphed suit interfacing with the hyperspace tether. Reality screamed as 5 mechanical dinosaurs materialized from hyperspace directly above the base, damaged but functional, their systems rebooting with dimensional energy. The Tyrannosaurus roared, the Mastodon trumpeted, the Triceratops bellowed. The saber-toothed tiger snarled, the Pteranodon screeched, and every Imperial sensor on Lothal registered the impossible. Technology that shouldn't exist, operating on principles that defied galactic science. Form Megazord, Jason called, and this time the combination sequence flowed smoothly. The Kyber enhanced grid connection, allowing perfect synchronization. The 5 Zords came together in a dance of mechanical precision, legs locking, arms connecting, torso forming, head emerging. The Megazord stood over 100 feet tall, its armor gleaming with new Force-reactive plating, its eyes blazing with combined dimensional and Kyber energy. Inside the cockpit, the Rangers took their positions. The controls felt right now, natural, the interface between pilot and machine seamless in ways it hadn't been before the Temple's modifications. All systems optimal, Billy reported. Megazord power at 120%. The Kyber integration is exceeding projections. Then let's see what we can do, Jason said. Rangers, show this Empire what happens when they pick a fight with the wrong teenagers. The Imperial assault came from 3 vectors, AT-ATs advancing on the ground, TIE bombers screaming through the atmosphere, and Star Destroyers repositioning for orbital bombardment. It was overwhelming force designed to eradicate all resistance. The Megazord met them head-on, and AT-AT's heavy cannons opened fire, turbo laser bolts that could level buildings. The Megazord's new energy field dispersed the impacts, Kyber resonance converting coherent energy into harmless dispersion. The Megazord's fist came down on the walker's head, crushing Imperial engineering like foil. TIE bombers dropped their payloads, proton bombs that exploded in flowers of nuclear fire. The Megazord walked through the inferno, armor glowing but holding, and swatted TIEs from the sky like insects. Power Sword, Jason called, and the Megazord's hand reached skyward. Dimensional energy combined with Force resonance, creating a blade that crackled with impossible power. The sword materialized, longer and more stable than before, its edge singing with combined energies. A Star Destroyer descended through the atmosphere, its massive bulk defying aerodynamics through sheer thruster power. its ventral batteries opened fire, turbo lasers that could shatter cities raining down on the Megazord's position. "Brace for impact," Trini warned. The first volley struck, and the Megazord staggered but held. The Kyber-enhanced armor dispersed energy across its entire frame, spreading the damage until it was survivable. The second volley came, and the Rangers coordinated their movements, using the Megazord's agility to dodge while the sword came up in a devastating upward slash. The blade cut through the Star Destroyer's hull like reality parting. The massive warship shuddered, atmospheric fires erupting from the wound, and began a slow, inevitable descent toward the ground. "One down," Zack said, breathing hard. "Two to go." But the other Star Destroyers were repositioning, learning, adapting their tactics. Vader would be aboard one of them, coordinating the assault with cold precision. This wasn't just a battle, it was a siege, and the Empire had resources to outlast them. "We can't win a war of attrition," Kimberly said, voicing what they all knew. "We need to end this fast." "Then we go for the head," Jason decided. "Billy, can you identify which Star Destroyer Vader's on?" "Already did," Billy confirmed, highlighting one of the massive warships on their HUD. "That one, the Relentless." Scanning increased dark side energy signature. "He's definitely aboard." "Then that's our target," Jason said. "If we take down Vader's ship, the Imperial forces lose coordination, maybe enough for us and the rebels to escape." "That's assuming we survive attacking a Star Destroyer head-on," Trini pointed out. "When has that ever stopped us?" Tommy said. "And despite everything, the fear, the darkness, the impossible odds, there was a smile in his voice." The Megazord's thrusters ignited, propelling the massive machine skyward with force-enhanced power. They rose through atmosphere filled with TIE fighters and turbo laser fire, the power sword carving a path through Imperial resistance. The Relentless loomed above them, a wedge-shaped monument to tyranny that blotted out the stars. Its batteries tracked the Megazord's ascent, hundreds of weapon systems acquiring target locks simultaneously. "Here we go," Jason said. "Rangers, it's been an honor." "Not past tense," Kimberly corrected. "We're not done yet." The Star Destroyer fired everything, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers charged directly into the storm. The Megazord flew through hell. Turbo laser bolts by the hundreds, each one capable of vaporizing a building, converged on their position. The Kyber-enhanced armor held, but barely. Warning klaxons screamed as systems overloaded, as the energy dispersion field struggled to process the sheer volume of incoming fire. "Shield integrity at 60%, Billy warned. "We can't sustain this." "We don't need to sustain," Jason shot back. "We just need to reach the bridge." The power sword came forward, dimensional energy blazing so bright it outshone the Star Destroyer's weapons fire. The blade struck the Relentless's hull and carved through durasteel plating designed to withstand planetary bombardments. Metal screamed and atmosphere vented as the Megazord literally cut its way into the warship's superstructure. Inside the Relentless, chaos erupted. Crew stations exploded as power conduits ruptured. Imperial officers screamed orders that went unheeded as sections of the ship lost pressure. And on the bridge, Darth Vader stood before the main viewport, watching a 100-foot mechanical warrior tear through his flagship. "All batteries, concentrate fire," Vader commanded with mechanical calm. "Destroy that machine." "Lord Vader, if we concentrate fire on our own hull." "Now!" The Star Destroyer's weapons turned inward, turbo lasers firing at point-blank range into their own ship. It was tactical insanity, sacrificing the vessel to destroy the threat. But Vader had calculated that even enhanced armor couldn't withstand weapons fire from inside the energy dispersion field. He was almost right. The Megazord shuddered, as turbo laser bolts struck from every angle, internal and external fire converging. Warning systems turned critical, the cockpit filled with smoke as circuits overloaded and the smell of burning insulation choked the air. "We're not going to make it," Zack shouted over the alarms. "Yes, we are," Tommy countered. Through his Kyber-enhanced connection, he could feel the force flowing through the Megazord itself, through the battle, through the moment. And he understood something crucial. They didn't need to destroy the entire Star Destroyer. They just needed to stop Vader. "Jason, the bridge!" Tommy called out. "We can reach it, 30 meters forward, 20 degrees up." "How do you know?" "I can feel it." And he could. The dark side presence was like a beacon, Vader's power signature unmistakable even through Durasteel and energy shields. Jason trusted his teammate. He always had. "Power sword, full thrust." The Rangers channeled everything: morphing grid energy, Kyber crystal amplification, force resonance, and pure desperate will into one final attack. The power sword blazed with light that was simultaneously red, black, pink, yellow, and blue, all 5 Ranger colors combining into something that transcended any single power. The blade struck the Relentless's bridge. Reality bent. The Force screamed. Dimensional energy met dark side power in a collision that shouldn't have been possible, and for one eternal instant, the barrier between universes grew gossamer thin. Vader felt it. Felt the morphing grid itself, a vast ocean of power that existed outside the Force's dominion, power that operated on rules the Sith had never encountered. And he understood, finally, why these warriors were so dangerous. They proved that the Force wasn't absolute. The bridge exploded. Not from the sword strike directly, but from the cascade failure as the Relentless's primary systems overloaded. Vader raised his hands, using the Force to shield himself from shrapnel and fire, but even his power couldn't prevent what came next. The Star Destroyer began to die. "All hands, abandon ship," Vader commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos with mechanical authority. He wasn't retreating. He was recognizing tactical reality. The Relentless was lost, but Vader himself would survive to hunt another day. He force leaped from the disintegrating bridge, his cape billowing as he descended through the superstructure toward the hangar bays, and his personal tie advanced. Around him, the great warship groaned like a dying Leviathan. The Megazord pulled back from the ruined Star Destroyer, its systems barely functional, warning lights painting the cockpit in emergency red. Below, the Relentless began its death spiral toward Lothal's surface, escape pods and shuttles fleeing its bulk like birds from a falling tree. "Did we get him?" Kimberly asked, coughing from the smoke. "Unknown," Billy reported, running scans through damaged sensors. "But we definitely got his ship." The remaining 2 Star Destroyers were pulling back, their commanders unwilling to risk the same fate. Without Vader's flagship, the Imperial coordination collapsed. TIE fighters scattered. Ground forces retreated to defensible positions. The siege was broken. "Rangers," Hera's voice crackled over comms, filled with something like awe. Did you just single-handedly destroy a Star Destroyer?" "More like 6-handedly, Zack managed, grinning despite exhaustion. "Team effort." "Return to base," Hera said. "The Empire's retreating, but we need to evacuate before they regroup. This location is compromised." The Megazord descended, its systems failing gradually as the adrenaline of combat faded. They separated back into individual Zords, and the Rangers demorphed in their respective cockpits, collapsing against controls with the bone-deep exhaustion that came after every major battle. Jason sat in the Tyrannosaurus cockpit, staring at his morpher. The Kyber crystal modification gleamed in the dim light, a reminder that they'd adapted, evolved, merged their power with this galaxy's energy in ways neither dimension had ever seen before. His communicator beeped. Not the Star Wars comms they'd been using, but his actual Ranger communicator, silent since they'd arrived. "Zordon?" Jason's voice cracked with hope. The signal was weak, breaking up with dimensional static, but it was there. "Rangers. Connection stabilizing. Calculating retrieval. Hold position. Days, maybe weeks. Stay alive." The message cut out, but its meaning was crystal clear. Zordon had found them. The morphing grid connection, strengthened by kyber crystals and force energy, was stable enough for communication, and he was working on bringing them home. Jason laughed, exhausted, relieved, and filled with hope for the first time since arriving in this galaxy. "Guys," he said over team comms, "Zordon just made contact. He's going to get us home." The reactions were immediate. Kimberly's sob of relief, Zach's whoop of joy, Trini's quiet prayer of thanks, Billy's excited analysis of the scientific implications, and Tommy's simple, heartfelt, "Thank God." But even as relief washed over them, they knew the truth. Weeks, Zordon had said, maybe longer. They were still trapped in the Star Wars galaxy, still hunted by an empire that wouldn't forget or forgive, still 6 teenagers impossibly far from home. But now they had hope. And for Rangers, hope was its own kind of power. The Ghost picked them up an hour later, the Zords following under remote power. The rebel base was already being evacuated, ships lifting off toward hyperspace jump points as the Empire regrouped. Hera's crew worked with practiced efficiency, loading supplies and personnel. "Where will you go?" Jason asked Hera as they stood on the Ghost's loading ramp. "Wherever the fight takes us," Hera said with a tired smile. "The rebellion doesn't have the luxury of stopping, but thanks to you, we survived to fight another day. That's more than we usually get." Kanan approached with Ezra, both of them bruised but alive. "The Force is with you," Kanan said formally. "I don't fully understand your power, but I recognize its light. When you return to your galaxy, know that you made a difference here." "We just did what Rangers do," Jason said. "Help people who need it." "Then your galaxy is fortunate to have you," Ezra said. Sabine handed Billy a datapad. "Schematics for the kyber modifications, plus some notes on Force reactive engineering. If you ever make it back to your dimension, maybe your Zordon can use them. Consider it a thank you gift from one engineer to another." Billy took the datapad reverently. This is incredible. The applications for dimensional energy research alone." "Billy," Trini interrupted gently, "save the science enthusiasm for when we're not on a ticking clock." The Rangers boarded the Ghost. As the ship lifted off, they looked down at Lothal, a world they'd never meant to visit, that had nearly killed them, where they'd lost their powers and found them again transformed. "Think we'll ever come back?" Kimberly asked quietly. "I hope not," Zach admitted. "No offense to the galaxy, but I prefer fighting monsters that don't have fleets of star destroyers." Tommy said nothing, just watched the planet shrink below them. He could still feel the dark side, distant now, but present. A reminder that some battles weren't external. They were the ones you fought inside yourself every day. Jason put a hand on his shoulder. "We're going home, Tommy. All of us. Together." "Together," Tommy agreed. And for now, that was enough. In orbit above Lothal, aboard a backup Imperial command ship, Darth Vader stood before Emperor Palpatine's hologram. The Emperor's hooded face was unreadable, but his displeasure radiated through the Force like heat from a dying star. "You allowed 6 children to destroy your flagship," Palpatine said, his voice silk over Durasteel. "Explain." "They are not children, my master," Vader said carefully. "They are warriors from beyond our reality, operating on power we do not fully understand. Their technology interfaces with the Force in unprecedented ways. They are still 6 against an empire of trillions, Palpatine interrupted. Find them, Lord Vader. Capture them or kill them, I care not which, but I will not tolerate unknown powers operating in my galaxy. Yes, my master. The hologram faded. Vader turned to the viewport, watching the few remaining rebel ships jump to hyperspace. The Rangers were among them. He could sense it. 6 points of light in the Force that read as both present and impossibly distant. You fought well, Vader said to the empty air, to warriors who couldn't hear him. But this galaxy is not kind to heroes. You will learn that lesson, or you will die. There is no third option. His respirator hissed in the silence, and Darth Vader began planning his next move. 3 weeks passed in hyperspace jumps and hidden bases, in training with rebels and adapting to a galaxy at war. The Rangers learned to navigate star charts that made Earth's geography seem quaintly simple. They fought alongside the rebellion in skirmishes that would never make Imperial history, but saved lives nonetheless. And they waited for Zordon's signal, for the dimensional pathway home that he was constructing across impossible distance. The morphers held, Kyber enhanced and stable. The Zords were repaired and upgraded with rebel technology that made them even more formidable. And the Rangers themselves had changed, tempered by battles where the stakes weren't just Angel Grove, but entire star systems, where the enemy wasn't a witch with monsters, but an empire with the resources to burn worlds. They'd learned that heroism looked different in this galaxy. The rebellion fought without certainty of victory, without guarantee of survival, driven only by the belief that fighting tyranny was worth dying for. It made their own battles against Rita and Zed seem almost manageable by comparison. But they'd also taught the rebellion something, that power didn't have to corrupt, that 6 teenagers could stand against impossible odds and win through teamwork and courage, that even in the darkest galaxy, there were lights from other realities that refused to be extinguished. When Zordon's final signal came, coordinates for the dimensional rift he'd stabilized, instructions for the morphing grid jump that would take them home, there was relief, yes, but also something bittersweet. They'd made friends here, fought battles that mattered, left marks on a galaxy that would remember the 6 warriors in colored armor who'd appeared from nowhere and changed everything. Will we see you again? Ezra asked as they prepared to leave. Dimensional barriers are funny things, Billy said, though even his scientific mind couldn't predict the answer. In an infinite multiverse, anything's possible. Then I hope it's possible, Hera said. She saluted formally. May the Force be with you, Power Rangers. And with you, Jason replied. Always. The Rangers returned to their Zords for the final time in the Star Wars galaxy. The Megazord formed once more, standing in the cargo hold of a massive Rebel transport that had been cleared specifically for this moment. Rebel engineers had helped Billy calculate the dimensional coordinates, combining morphing grid physics with Force mysticism in ways that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Initiating dimensional jump, Billy announced. Locking onto Zordon's signal, engaging morphing grid portal in 3, 2, 1. Reality tore open. A rift of impossible colors, the same crimson and gold and electric blue that had brought them here, opened in space itself. The Megazord stepped forward, carrying 6 teenagers who'd fought Star Destroyers and Sith Lords and lived to tell about it. Goodbye, Star Wars Galaxy, Kimberly whispered. They crossed the threshold, and the rift collapsed behind them. On Earth, in the command center, Zordon's face appeared in the viewing globe as dimensional energy surged through the chamber. The Zords materialized in the power chamber's holding bays, and 6 teenagers stumbled out, exhausted, changed but home. Rangers, Zordon's voice was warm with relief and pride. Welcome back. Zordon! They rushed forward and Alpha 5 fussed over them, checking for injuries and marveling at the Kyber crystal modifications to their morphers. Aye. Rangers, your morphers have been altered with unknown crystalline technology. And these energy readings, they're showing force resonance. What happened to you? It's a long story, Jason said, grinning despite exhaustion. Involving a galaxy far, far away, a guy named Vader who seriously needs therapy, and the realization that our problems with Rita are actually pretty manageable by comparison. We brought back data, Billy said, already handing Zordon the schematics Sabine had given them. Dimensional engineering principles that could revolutionize our understanding of the morphing grid, and proof that there are other realities out there, other heroes fighting other wars. Zordon studied the data with ancient wisdom. You have done more than survive, Rangers. You have proven that heroism transcends dimensions, that the light of courage burns bright enough to illuminate even the darkest galaxies. I am proud of you all. They left the command center eventually, returning to normal teenage lives that would never quite feel normal again. They'd seen star systems and fought beside rebels and stood against tyranny on a galactic scale. Angel Grove High School and weekend shifts at Ernie's gym and Bulk and Skull's antics all seemed smaller somehow, though no less important. Because they'd learned the most crucial lesson, that fighting for what's right mattered everywhere, whether it was protecting their city from rubber suit monsters or helping a galaxy resist an empire. The scale changed, but the principle remained. Somewhere in the Star Wars galaxy, Hera Syndulla kept a hologram of 6 armored warriors who'd appeared from nowhere and helped win impossible battles. Kanan Jarrus meditated on the strange energy that had merged with the Force. Ezra Bridger wondered if he'd ever meet Tommy again, that warrior who'd touched darkness and chosen light. And Darth Vader added 6 entries to his personal database, anomalies from beyond the Force's reach, warriors who'd escaped him. He would remember the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and if the Force ever brought them back to his galaxy, he would be ready. But for now, 6 teenagers walked the halls of their high school, carrying secrets that would sound like science fiction even by Power Ranger standards. They'd fought in a galaxy far, far away. They'd stood against the Empire. They'd proven that even in the darkest places, even against the most overwhelming odds, courage and teamwork could turn the tide. And they'd come home. The legend of the color-coded warriors would echo through rebel bases for years. Stories told in whispers of the day 6 heroes from another reality had shown them that in an infinite universe, help could come from the most unexpected places. That heroism wasn't bound by one galaxy or one set of rules. That the Force, vast as it was, wasn't the only power in existence that could stand against darkness. May the Force be with you. More stories await.